Dear colleagues, good morning. Ukrainian Crisis Media Center starts its working day, and we are giving the floor to Oksana Gavriluk from the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine with the updates on the activities of the ministry over the past week. Good morning. Today at 10:30 a.m., the day of commemorating the heroes of Krut will be hosted, and the President of Ukraine, Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, will meet there the military students of military higher institutions of Ukraine and lyceums of Ukraine, and also the military men, members of anti-terroristic operation in the territory of Donetsk and Lugansk regions. In the course of the meeting, it is planned to give decorations which are to be awarded to 80 participants. Journalists are invited to cover the event. The procedure of accreditation is available at the website of the President of Ukraine and the Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine continues reforms aimed at transforming the armed forces of Ukraine into highly professional, well-equipped troops. The Defense Agency has prepared a draft concept of the state-targeted defense program of development of weaponry and military equipment of the armed forces of Ukraine for a long-term perspective, and the draft state-targeted defense program of military equipment development for 2015-2020 years, which are pending at the government. The state defense order for 2016 is being prepared. The President of Ukraine, who is the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, at the meeting of the Council of National Security and Defense of Ukraine, instructed to include development and procurement of rocket and missiles to the state procurement order in the scope of Vilha project. New models of artillery systems also will be supplied, as well as highly precise rockets and ammunition, anti-tank missile system, new means of automation of artillery units, and automated sets of reconnaissance. Besides that, the President instructed to include to the state procurement order UAVs, including combat fighting UAVs, armored transporter of new generations, means of communications and management, navigation apparatuses, technologies and materials of space intelligence. It is planned to buy modernized aircrafts, helicopters for the aircraft forces of Ukraine, and anti-aircraft missile complex set of mid-range, and to modernize the available anti-aircraft rocket systems, as well as radar systems and stations of optical electronic suppression. The procurement is supposed for the marine forces of Ukraine. It is planned to buy the means of destruction, and the procurement of combat ships and armored artillery boats have been analyzed. It is planned that in order to finance the defense order for 2016, it would be increased by 34% as compared to 2015 in order to improve efficiency of implementation of the defense order. The Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine has adopted the law, amending the law of Ukraine on the state defense public procurement order. The document stipulates the main indicators of the state public procurement order. They will be planned for 3 years, which will enable strategic planning of state procurement and will also allow to prepare to the innovations in the weaponry and military equipment. According to this law, the Ministry of Economic Development will draft the state procurement for defense sphere during 1 month after adoption of the governmental budget, of the national budget. This would allow to fast sign contracts with the contractors and to start funding the producers of weaponry. In exceptional cases, for example, in the conditions of a special period and in case of extraordinary situation or anti-terroristic operation or crisis situations which threatens national security of Ukraine, procurement and supply of products, works and services for defense sector will be beyond state procurement order. The draft law also address the pricing matter. Its procedure will be defined by the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine continues to provide benefits to military servicemen participating in ATO for their brave combat actions and professional skills. 66 military men and employees of armed forces of Ukraine were awarded the decorations of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and also the prizes, the Declaration for Bravery of the Third Stage was awarded to Timur Yuldashev, who died at Savur Mogila, defending this stronghold. Last week, the Commission of the Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces of Ukraine addressed the matter of granting status of combatant, and the Commission has already provided this status to 6,474 military men and employees of the armed forces of Ukraine who took part in ATO. So far, the status of combatant has been granted to 108,044 persons. According to the initiative of the President of Ukraine, since the 1st of January 2016, the monetary remunerations of military men has increased. The brigade commander, who previously was paid 6.5 thousand hryvnia, will receive 16,000 hryvnia. The commander of battalion, who was paid 4.5 thousand hryvnias, will be paid 13,000 hryvnias. A company commander who was paid 5,000 hryvnias will be paid 11,000 hryvnias. A commander of platoon who was paid 3,800 hryvnias will be paid 9.5 thousand hryvnias. And to finalize the message, we would like to address the sports news. This week, Ukrainian military sportsmen took part in international competitions on academic rowing and judo in Bulgaria, on cycling in Turkey, and shooting in Germany, and wrestling in Switzerland, where they won 1 gold and 2 silver medals. Next week, the Army sportsmen will continue participating in international competitions on fencing in Spain, shooting in Germany, and swimming in France. And now I am giving the floor to Colonel Andriy Zadubinnyi, ITO spokesman. Good morning. We are listening to your information about the dynamics of hostilities in ATO zone in the last 3 days. Unfortunately, in the ATO zone, the Russian-backed militants continue to fire on Ukrainian positions. About half of those fire incidents are of provocative character. The goal of these actions is to provoke our soldiers to return fire in order to blame them in violation of the ceasefire. So, on January 26, the number of shells by militants on our positions dramatically increased. Near Mariinka, our strongholds came under the hostile fire of all possible weaponry. The occupants used grenade launchers of various systems, heavy machine guns, and even anti-aircraft guns. Near Krasnogorivka, our positions came under fire from grenade launchers and a mortar. Near Novgorodsk, the enemy fired on Ukrainian strongholds of infantry fighting vehicle and automatic grenade launchers and heavy machine guns. On January 27th, the shellings on Ukrainian army positions by militants continued. The situation was tense in the suburbs of Donetsk. Ukrainian strongholds came under fire of small arms, heavy machine guns, and grenade launchers of various systems in Opitne, Piske, Avdiivka, and Butivka mine. Ukrainian positions near Mariinka came under fire of anti-aircraft gun. Also, hostile sniper was active there. Near Svetlodarsk salient near Mayorsk and Troitsk, the enemy opened fire of mortar, grenade launchers, and small arms. On January 28th, the attacks by Russian-backed militants on the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine didn't stop. Over the last day, the militant formations 71 times violated the ceasefire. At Svetlodarsk salient, the enemy fired on our strongholds in Zaitsevo of mortars of 82 millimeter caliber. In Novgorodsk and Mayorsk, they used grenade launchers, heavy machine guns, and an infantry fighting vehicle. The situation was tense near Mariinka. Ukrainian soldiers were forced to open precision fire in response to the shellings of the occupants. The number of shellings have been increasing. The geography has been extending. At the same time, provoking our soldiers to return fire. The terrorists fire the districts where civilians reside. For example, at 9 o'clock, the mercenaries used infantry fighting vehicle and automatic grenade launcher to fire on the checkpoint Marienka of the State Border Service of Ukraine. According to the intelligence information, such provocations are being prepared by militants at other checkpoints where pedestrians pass through the contact line in Artemis sector. The next proof that the peace in Donbass is not on the plans of the militants and their supervisors from Kremlin. In total, during the period between 26 and 28th of January, the militants 176 times violated the ceasefire. The servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine continue to provide assistance to local citizens who are in the hardships due to the armed hostilities. Especially this concerns the civilians who reside in the so-called gray zone. In all sectors, the civil-military cooperation teams are operating. They supply all necessary things to local citizens, starting with food and ending with medicines. The group of coordination of the headquarters of ATO conducted the working visit into Mayorsk, where they met volunteers and civilians and addressed the matters of restoration of local infrastructure because the electricity and gas supply is lacking there, as well as transport communications with the town of Artemysk. In the scope of construction of reserve electricity supply line for 110,000 voltage in Krasnogorivka, the escort to the representatives of DTEC was provided so that they can supply electricity pylons to the area where the works are conducted. The works continues on restoring the gas line in Marienka, where the engineering preparation works were conducted to lay the pipelines, and the works were organized for pyrotechnic service of the Ministry of Emergency Services. As concerns the humanitarian assistance, the team of humanitarian assistance continues to escort humanitarian loans from Caritas Kramatorsk to Lugansk, 60 tons of solid fuel. Also, the children's clothes were supplies to the orphanage Burashka in Avdiivka from the volunteers from Chernobay, and so on. Thank you. That's all for today. Thank you very much. That's all for today. We will listen to you next time, next Tuesday. Colleagues, our next press briefing will be at 10:30.